You're listening to Romancing in Paris on Paris Underground Radio.
Hello, and welcome to the Romancing in Paris podcast. I'm your host, Lily Heise. In this podcast, we'll be traveling around the city as I pick out my top romantic spots per arrondissement. You don't have to visit these places only as a couple. Exploring them can be the expression of your own love of Paris. Are you ready to get romancing in Paris? Hello, and welcome back to Romancing in Paris. In the last few episodes, we visited some wonderfully romantic restaurants in the 6th district, as well as one of my favorite secret gardens in Paris, hidden away in the 7th. So today, I wanted to shake things up a bit by visiting a place which was both romantic in appearance and in history. This time with a bit of oh la la raciness. In this episode, we're going to visit one of the most sumptuous historic residences in all of Paris, built for one of France's most famous courtesans. Grab your chérie. We're going to the Hôtel de la Paiva. Located at number 25 Avenue des Champs Élysées, this alluring private mansion, the only one left on the prestigious avenue, was built in the mid-1800s for the renowned courtesan known as La Paiva. The mansion witnessed a grand era of opulence, scandal, and transformation. Its owner, too, propelled her life into one of transformation, from her humble beginnings to her rise as one of the most celebrated and controversial celebrities of her time. Before we visit her mansion, let's learn a little more about the powerful woman behind the majestic title. Born Esther Pauline Blanche Lachmann, La Marquise de la Paiva was born in 1819 into a modest Jewish family in the small town of Grunberg, present-day Poland. A weaver, her father moved the family to a shekel outside Moscow when Esther was a child. In 1836, she was married to a French tailor who was living in Russia, Antoine François Villongue, to whom she bore a son the following year. However, she quickly understood that her destiny lay elsewhere, and she ran away with a man, whom we don't know his name, an exodus which took her to various cities around Europe, before ending in the most glamorous one of the era, Paris. She ended up in La Nouvelle Athènes, a fashionable and new district of the times, now in today's 9th arrondissement, more precisely the area around Notre-Dame de Lorette Church. The surrounding streets were populated by stylish Parisians, but also by Lorettes, mid-level prostitutes nicknamed after the church. These were generally well-dressed, attractive young ladies who mingled with society people on the prowl for clients. This is how, in around 1840, Esther met the wealthy and well-connected pianist Henry Hertz, who instantly fell madly in love with the alluring redhead. They are said to have married, but she was already still married to Antoine, so it wasn't a terribly legal union. Nevertheless, around 1847, they had a child together, Henriette, named after her father, who was raised by Hertz's parents and sadly passed away at age 12. Hertz had the opportunity to travel across the Atlantic to give some concerts in the U.S., During his absence, his wife was busy spending all of his money. His parents found out about this and sent her away. This time she took refuge in London. Esther kept up an opulent lifestyle, collecting a range of influential lovers, including politician Lord Edward Stanley. While she was in Europe's economic capital, she also learned how to manage and invest her money, which led to her growing substantial personal wealth. Back in Paris, she kept climbing the social ladder, adding up affairs with top aristocrats. When her first husband passed away, she was free to officially marry someone else. That man ended up being Count Albino Francisco de Aruja de Paiva, a Portuguese nobleman and diplomat. The marriage took place in 1851 and granted her the title of Countess, which helped propel her further up the echelons of European society. To suit her rank, her husband bought her a first elegant mansion, Hotel de la Paiva in Place Saint-Georges, also in the 9th, in that fashionable Nouvelle Étaine district we were talking about earlier, and which we will touch upon a little bit more in the next episode of the podcast on the 9th district. Noble title and chic residence in hand, La Paiva sent her husband back to Portugal so she could carry on her regal Parisian life. Oh la la. In 1852, she met Count Guido de Donismarck, an exceptionally rich Prussian and cousin of German Chancellor Otto von Bismarck. She reckoned her not-so-humble home on Place Saint-Georges was no longer good enough for her. Therefore, in 1854, she began construction of a mansion worthy of her ever-continuing rise of grandeur, right on the world-famous Champs Élysées. This regal home would sit side by side the palaces of dukes, counts, and princesses. The scandal. Completed in 1866, its inaugural party is still considered one of the most extravagant gatherings in Parisian history. The mansion became one of the centers of high society in the Second Empire, attracting artists, writers, and politicians. However, not everyone was favorable of La Grande Paiva. She would never be invited to the Tuileries Palace where the emperor and empress lived, and she was often criticized by the Goncourt brothers, writers and chroniclers of the era. Nevertheless, La Paiva's spectacular heyday at her extravagant mansion would be somewhat short-lived, dampened by the Franco-Prussian War, which broke out a mere 4 years after the completion of her mansion in 1870. In August 1871, her marriage to the Count de Paiva was annulled, leaving her free to marry her true love, the Count of Donismarck, which they did in Paris in October of the same year. Being married to a Prussian was not terribly favorable after France's defeat in the war. Caught between both sides, La Paiva did some meddling in politics and was eventually accused of spying for Prussia, where in 1877 she had to take exile, yet another one, her third and final. She retreated to her husband's castle, Le Château de Nudek, today in Poland, where she died at age 65 in 1884. With the background of this exceptional figure established, I think it's time to take a journey to 25 Rue des Champs Élysées.
If you're enjoying this episode of Romancing in Paris, you may be interested in our sister podcast, Don't Miss This. It comes out every Sunday and has a fabulous roundup of the best and coolest events taking place in Paris during the week. Romancing in Paris will be right back after a word from our sponsors. And now, back to Romancing in Paris.
Arriving at the address, you'll notice a 3-story building set back from the street. Paiva commissioned the renowned architect Pierre Manguin to design her dream home. The result was a palatial mansion that combined elements of both the Italian Renaissance and French Second Empire styles. The Hôtel de la Paiva boasts opulent interiors adorned with lavish decorations including gilded ceilings, marble columns, and sumptuous furnishings. Its pièce de la résistance is a grand staircase, a stunning spiral marble made of precious Carrara marble. Each room was carefully designed and included paintings and sculptures by the top or future artists of the times, including Paul Baudry and one sculpture by Auguste Rodin. La Paiva herself is found throughout, that is, depicted as a Renaissance-style dame with her eyes coyly looking down. Sunflowers are also peppered here and there, a symbol of following love. Speaking of love goddesses also decorate the ceilings and medallions in the grand reception rooms of the mansion. Among these is Diana, goddess of the hunt and the night, a convenient revival of the symbol of Diane de Poitiers, the great mistress of King Henry II. You see, La Paiva did a lot of things to hark back to ancient French times. The main reception room is splendid, and one can easily imagine attending a glittering party here. Midway up the exquisite staircase is a metaphorical nude depiction of La Paiva, which, it is said, gentlemen caress on their way up the stairs. More intimate, yet still sumptuous, the second floor has rooms for the Duke and a series of private rooms for La Paiva, including her infamous bathroom with arabesque tiles and a luxurious onyx bathtub with special taps, one for cold water, one for hot water, quite a luxury at the time, and a third for champagne. Also divine, her bedroom has an intricately carved, painted Moorish ceiling, and in a vast niche, flanked by a soaring mirror, was her grandiose bed, which apparently cost a small fortune just in itself, but is no longer preserved at the mansion. The breathtaking room overlooks a large terrace with the Champs Élysées beyond. So La Paiva could keep watch over what had become her kingdom, albeit only for a short time. Since 1904, her mansion has been owned by the Travelers Club of Paris, a private gentlemen's club. You can visit the interiors on weekends only by reserving a guided tour and in French, which you can find by searching for Hôtel de la Paiva on the website Billet Reduc. It's well worth attending one of these tours just to see these extravagant interiors for yourself. However, you can view the outside of the mansion from the sidewalk. If you do, Examine the gorgeous gates, which feature faces of Apollo on the left and La Paiva on the right, that coy Renaissance dame I mentioned before. Or you can grab a drink on the nice terrace of the stylish cafe-restaurant Le Bistro 25 or the Bistro 25, found in the front section of the mansion and with a terrace on the Champs Élysées. It's the perfect place to let your imagination run wild, or at the very least back to the 19th century and the exploits of La Paiva. Thank you for listening to this latest episode of Romancing in Paris. If you have a minute, ratings or reviews are always highly appreciated. You can find more great ideas for romantic things to do in Paris and around the world on my website jetammeneither.com, and check out the Paris Underground website for more great podcasts on Paris and France. Until next time, happy romancing in Paris.
This episode of Romancing in Paris was produced by Jennifer Garrity for Paris Underground Radio. For more on this show and shows like it, please visit parisundergroundradio.com.